What's up, y'all? Alvin here. And yes, fly fishing is the best way to fish.
I tell the good jokes.
All right, so before you roast me in the comments, I'll just say fly fishing is my favorite way to fish, and it may be the best way to fish in a lot of different ways, but I'm also going to give you a couple of reasons why fly fishing might not be the best way to fish. So please don't roast me in the comments, but definitely tell me what you think. All right, number one. So this is one that goes way back to when I was working at the fly shop, and a lot of people would compare fly fishing to bow fishing, compared to regular hunting with a rifle or a shotgun. It is fun. A lot of people do it not because it's the best way to catch fish, but it's a more fun way to catch fish, a more challenging way to catch fish. It takes a little bit more practice, a little bit more skill, and it's a little bit harder. So, it takes a little bit more focus. So, bow hunting is definitely not the best way to kill a large animal, a deer or an elk, but lots of people will only do it that way. And that's sort of how fly fishing is for me and a lot of other people that I know. It just is a little bit more focusing, a little bit more technique oriented, and therefore, in a lot of ways, more fun. All right, so what is number two? Number two is also similar to bow hunting, but there's some advantages. So fly fishing, a lot of times it's going to be a lot more stealthy, a lot more delicate. So if you're fly fishing for trout or fishing for trout and they're sipping dry flies off the surface, it's pretty tough to present a tiny little dry fly. There's really no other way to imitate something like that than with a fly rod. But also, if you're fishing for bass or you're fishing for saltwater fish and they are in shallow water, or they're spooky or they're picky, the fly is also going to be a little bit easier. So I can imitate a tiny little crab or a tiny little shrimp much better with the fly rod than anything on conventional tackle. And also it's going to be much easier to present that small, delicate fly in shallow water without spooking the fish. So that is another reason why fly fishing may be the best way to fish. Okay, so number three, fly fishing is super, super adaptable. So you've got heavyweight rods. You can catch everything from little sunfish to sailfish and marlin, GTs, all kinds of fish. And you can also create all types of different flies. You can make big topwater flies. You can make small sinking flies, tiny nymphs that are like, quarter of an inch long or smaller. You can adapt your tackle. You can change the length of your leader depending on what you're trying to do, whether you need to turn over a big bulky fly or you need to make the leader nice and long and taper down to a really small diameter at the end so you can present a fly to a super spooky trout or super spooky bonefish in really shallow, clear water. And, yes, it does require sometimes having to acquire more tackle, which is, going to be more expensive, but you can really make your fly fishing outfit, your fly fishing presentation, however you want it. I mean, the possibilities are limitless. So another reason why fly fishing may be the best way to fish. All right, what is number four? Okay, so number four is kind of a deep one. So not only is it a good way to catch fish, but it's also maybe a little bit more ethical, a little bit easier to, fish catch and release, the whole conservation thing. Typically your flies are going to be single hook A lot of times barbless. They don't have to be barbless, but the fact that it's a single hook and it is not typically going to be something where the fish is going to just, swallow it really deep. Now, sometimes a bass will inhale a frog popper or something and, you have a tough time pulling the hook out. But typically we're not using, multiple hooks. We're not using treble hooks, usually not using barbed hooks. So it's a lot easier on the fish. So there is some research that says as far as catch and release goes, and you can debate the merits of catch and release, but if you do practice catch and release, it is going to be much easier on the fish catching them on a fly with a single hook setup than bait for sure and lures with multiple hooks or treble hooks. So there's that aspect of it. It's a little bit easier on the fish. Another reason why fly fishing may be the best way to fish. Okay, what is number 5? Okay, so number 5 really is not specific just to fly fishing, but number 5 is, it's good for you. Fly fishing is good for you. Fishing in general is good for you. It gets you out of the house. It gets you out in nature. It makes you think about something other than your day-to-day problems, your job, your family, whatever it is. It is just a good way to get out into nature and relax. Now, some of the reasons why fly fishing is even better than just fishing in general is it really does require you to focus a little bit more. You do have to think about the cast. You do have to think about your presentation. You do have to think about, how long of a leader do I need here? How heavy of a leader do I need here? How light of a leader do I need here? So every little detail that you have to go through to make it happen is just one more thing that makes you focus on what you're doing and not what you were thinking about 10 minutes ago when you were racking your brain trying to figure out oh man, how am I gonna get that sink unclogged? Leave the sink for now. Put an out of order sign on the sink and just go fishing. Maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe not the best advice, but that's what I've done a couple of times. Anyway, it is good for you. Fishing in general is good for you. And that's number 5. All right. So like I said, there are some disadvantages. And what are those disadvantages? Number 1 is it is not the best way to catch fish if you have to fish really deep or if you have to cover a lot of water. Now you can just blind cast with fly rods. We do it all the time. That is the main way we fish for bass is just blind casting, but we're casting to a target. But if you're out on the lake and it's just wide open, blank water and you need to just fan cast and cover as much water as you possibly can, spinning rod, bait casting rod is probably going to be a better way to do that. Or like I said, if you have to get really deep, say 20 feet or deeper, and even 10 or 15 feet is probably going to be a little bit of a challenge with a fly rod. But definitely if you're trying to get something down 20, 30, 40, 50 feet, you're going to definitely be able to do that better with conventional tackle. You just chunk some lead out there and let it sink. Now, there are some situations where we've fished really deep, down even to 40 feet with a fly rod, but it really is, it's not my favorite way to do it. It does work. You can catch fish down deep like that. It requires some specialized tackle, but that's also one of the advantages of fly fishing. There's all types of specialized tackle that you can use. But yeah, if you got to get deep, probably better to use some conventional tackle. So there's a couple of reasons where fly fishing may not be the best way to do it. And here's one more thing. Fly fishing is going to be a little bit more expensive, initially. Most of your fly equipment is not mass produced. So, just smaller numbers are going to, make the price be a little bit higher. The other thing is you do end up having to buy a little bit more gear than you would fishing with conventional tackle. If you decide you want to fish for trout you got a trout rod, but then if you decide you want to go saltwater fishing, you probably need to get a saltwater rod. So there's that. But, hey, that's maybe a bonus. You can look forward to buying that new rod, So buying gear is not always a bad thing if you don't spend your budget or you don't spend over your budget. It's definitely cheaper than buying fancy cars or motorcycles or expensive wine. And I think, like I said back in number 5, fly fishing's good for you. So spending a little money on yourself and getting some new gear is kind of a good thing. Now, if there's one other downside to fly fishing, it would be the fact that it is a little bit more technically involved. So you do need to learn to cast. It is a little bit different from most other sports. So you may need some instruction, but hey, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to teach you how to do this stuff. Speaking of that, I've got a fly fishing for bass course. I've got a link in the description down there. I've got some other online resources. I got tons of videos. And speaking of bass, you should check out this video right here. And I'm going to tell you what I think is the best fish to catch on a fly rod. See you over there.